Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The title of the hearing, as you have stated, is Lessons from Mueller Report Part 2, Bipartisan Perspectives. I think we will have our chance to hear this today, but I do have a concern that I want to bring up. The beginning of this, and this is a procedural issue, the chairman has every right to have every hearing. I'm glad that he actually has listened to us, that the affirmative finding out of the Mueller report was foreign interference, and we would like to talk about that. But yet, when our side was asked, or we were asked, what are the hearing schedule for this week, we were told we're going to get another rerun of obstruction. In fact, that was as late as of Monday night at 9 o'clock. We were told that this was going to be all about last week again, an obstruction, which, look, it's up to the chairman to do whatever, he wants to do, and we respect that, but to actually have, a good repartee so that we can get appropriate witnesses and work with that. Our witness is going to be, we're very happy to have him here, but it is something that we were caught unawares about, and I think it is something that if we can go forward, at least a knowledgeable heads up would affect all, because I think foreign interference in election systems are things that we need to discuss, and we've talked about that with bills that are out there, but it should come up in a hearing in which we actually have asked for, and you're not going to allow us to forget the rest of it, so don't worry about that, I'm sure. As we go forward today, though, the special counsel finished his investigation, found no Americans, no one on the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russians. That was great news for America, and I thought it would be actually great news to all Americans. To my surprise, and really, not really surprised, it wasn't. Democrats are not only disappointed, they're angry. Angry the president was not a Russian asset, it seems. Imagine disliking a president so much that you wished he were a foreign agent. That's where the other party is today. Despite the Mueller report's conclusions that came to, Democrats have spent the past few months trying to desperately revive their Russian conspiracy theory. Democrats spent 2 years calling the Mueller team the best of the best. But since they didn't like the outcome, Democrats now have to play prosecutor and redo the Mueller investigation. They launched their Mueller do-over when the chairman sent documents requests to 81 individuals and entities connected to the president. We'll call that the 81 investigation, as I call it. It was quickly abandoned in favor of Plan B. Plan B was Democrats manufactured a fight with the Attorney General. They issued a subpoena directing the Attorney General to violate the law by producing grand jury materials to Congress. Unsurprisingly, the Attorney General declined to break the law. Rather than engage in traditional accommodation process, the chairman held the Attorney General in contempt in record time on flimsy grounds. Even their own witnesses admitted the subpoena was asking for illegal things. Did the chairman learn from the chairman? No. The Democrats overplayed their hand again with Plan C when they subpoenaed testimony and documents from former White House counsel Don McGahn. The Democrats subpoenaed McGahn knowing every president since at least the 1970s, including Presidents Clinton and Obama, claimed immunity over congressional testimony from close presidential advisors. The Trump administration, like Clinton and Obama, claimed immunity over McGahn's testimony, and McGahn did not appear. When plans A through C failed to accomplish anything of substance, we decided to go in for the heavy artillery for Plan D. What was Plan D? Was it Mueller himself? No. That would have made too much sense. Was it it was a pivot to focus on the actual findings of wrongdoing in the Mueller report related to foreign election influence? No, that would have been productive. How do we focus on real issues facing America with the border crisis? We don't do. No, that would have been too compassionate. Instead, Plan D was John Dean. Yes, the convicted felon from Watergate scandal who spent 40 years telling everyone who will pay him that anything to walks is worse, that anything he did was, and anything that happens now is worse than Watergate. The Columbia Journalism Review ran the headline, Democrats' John Dean hearing is a flop. Washington Post columnist Karen Tumult said, no friend of the Trump administration, by the way, said, perhaps the best thing that could be said about the hearing was that no one repeated a stunt quite like the one that we saw from Representative Cohenpool last month in that same room when he ate from a bucket of chicken. The fact that Democrats believe the American public would be energized by John Dean, who has done nothing relevant since the 70s, shows how desperate and out of touch they became. And that desperation actually showed last week when, after the Dean hearing bombed and at least one member of the committee scolded MSNBC for ignoring the Dean hearing, not showing it enough. I hope the John Dean hearing was an end to the circus. But because no matter how many times we relive the findings of the report, the conclusions will not magically change. Instead, we're ignoring more pressing issues, but as I said last week, our actions expose our real priorities. So what hearing did we include for this week? Mueller Report Part 2, Bipartisan Perspectives. Well, we know that we're here to discuss. Given the majority's action in preparing for this hearing and the notice that we were given, I fear that once again we were turning this committee into another circus. The Attorney General made the Mueller report public 2 months ago. We can all read it for ourselves. We've had some wonderful dramatic readings in here over the past week or two, and even yesterday in the Hicks interview, and we all know what it says. The lessons of the Mueller report is no conspiracy. Well, as everyone in my generation growing up, they realized that the summer season was summer season was after all the shows had run the whole season. It was time for reruns. Well, tomorrow is the official start of summer. It's time for rerun season. Yesterday's episode was Hope Hicks. Today's episode is before us. So with that, Mr. Chairman, without further ado, let the show begin.